Welcome to the League-Kempner House in Galveston. When I bought this house, it was in terrible condition. Water was flooding into the house every time it rained. Termites were everywhere. And the wood the termites hadn't eaten was rotted from years of neglect. The whole house was about to fall to the ground. It was a lot to take in. Some people in this situation would take time to come up with a comprehensive plan. I usually just jump right in. I get asked all the time, how do you know where to start? What do you do first? I actually have a set of rules I follow. I'm not completely haphazard. First and foremost is safety. If there's something about the house that can seriously injure someone, it has to be fixed right away. And that's going to come into play really quickly with this house. Then comes security, which my sister argues is the same thing as safety, but I think of it differently. Safety is about protecting people. Security is more about protecting the house. Then it starts getting into the good stuff, which is stopping any further damage, and that usually comes from water issues. Then on the list, I have structural repair, which is just getting the house sound. You don't want anything falling down after you spend a lot of money doing the pretty stuff. Then there's the systems, which include sewer, water, gas, electric, AC, heat, those kinds of things. And those things usually mean you have to break into walls and tear stuff out to get them done. So it's a little bit destructive. Then and only then, after you get all these other things done, you can start on what I call surface stuff. And that's putting it all back together. And that's the part that people see. And that's kind of the fun part of the house. But it's a little frustrating because 90% of the money and the time gets spent on things that no one will ever see or even know that happened but me. That's why you need to watch these videos so you can follow along and see what really goes on in putting a house like this back together. I get comments all the time on the Lucas apartments about the poor condition and why doesn't somebody do something. People think it's falling down because that's all they see is the outside, which does need painting. But painting is the least of my concerns when a property like that is close to falling down, when it's full of leaks, being eaten by termites, all that kind of stuff. Superficial things, that surface stuff, has to be last on the list. There are two more S's. One is the schedule, and of course, then the mother of all S's, that's this one. You always hear the term rules are meant to be broken, and I am no exception. But when I do deviate from my rules, it's usually for a good reason, and I'll point these out along the way. For this house, there were no immediate safety issues that I could see, but there were some security issues. Primarily, the yard was so overgrown you couldn't see into the property, and neighbors were actually afraid to come out of their houses at night. I had a tree company from Houston standing by the day I closed on the house, and they started working clearing the underbrush. There were also several dead palm trees that needed to come out and trash, other things. So it didn't make sense to have them clear the yard and then come back later to remove the trees. So here I go deviating, and I bit the bullet and had everything done at once. It also made sense to make my neighbors happy because they all keep an eye on the house for me, which is one of those security things. There's several condo units right next door to me that have a bird's eye view into the house and yard. It was good to get to know them and make them happy because they really keep an eye out for the property. I'll have a separate video on the yard. It was just a beast all by itself. Also, the house needed to have a monitored security system, exterior lighting, new locks, all those fun kind of things. I met with constables, city marshals, registered with the police so they can enter the property at any time without permission, talk to them about patrolling the house. That's all kind of boring, so we'll just move along. I don't mess around, so on the 3 weeks between when my offer was accepted and closing, I met with several companies to get bids and start getting work lined up. So in addition to the tree guys, the second group that started the first day was a specialty sheet metal company that I'd worked with before, Underwood Sheet Metal. One of the major causes of deterioration in a house is water. Water comes from the top, it comes from the bottom, it can come from the inside, from plumbing leaks. Water is bad. At this house, there were roof and guttering issues that needed to be addressed right away. Gutters can be a good thing if they're installed and maintained properly. They can avoid foundation problems by diverting water away from the house. The gutter usually sits right up against the fascia, which is this flat part that's perpendicular to the ground, the soffit being the part underneath. But if gutters aren't kept clean, water can back up and overflow and rot the fascia boards and do other bad things. Personally, I've never seen a gutter that wasn't causing extensive rot or deterioration to the fascia behind it. These gutters are 30 to 40 feet off the ground, and I'm pretty sure they're not getting routine maintenance. The second problem with the gutters at the League house is that they were all designed to carry water to a cistern under the house, which is a big problem that we'll explore in another video. But for this video, let's just say I needed to stop the water from going under the house, so something had to be done with the gutters. This house had normal gutters that you can see here attached to the fascia. They also had 3 sets of gutters on the round porch off the parlor, which is where there was so much rot and decay. It's a big clue that something's wrong when you can actually see standing water in that top gutter here. There was another area with a bad gutter and roof design that I'll do another video on, because that small 10-foot section of gutter probably caused 80% of the damage to this house, and it deserves special treatment. So the sheet metal company removed all the gutter, replaced all the rotten fascia boards, and installed new custom flashing around the whole house. This odd west porch gutter was problematic. It's so unique to the house that I didn't want to remove it. So we came up with the solution to put a temporary cap on it to keep water out. Someday, when everything else is done, if I win the lottery, I might really investigate and try to restore this as part of the original construction. But for now, we just need to keep the water from doing further damage to the inside of this round room. Here's another example of where I started to break the rules. To save on the cost of painting down the road, I asked if I could prime and paint all the new fascia before it was installed. Not a big ask and a tiny cost for 2 gallons of primer and paint, but they were also nice enough to let me go up in the boom while they worked and scrape and sand the old fascia that was salvageable and put on a coat of paint and primer. That probably saved me $8,000 to $9,000 down the road in painting cost, which almost covered the bill to do all of the gutter and flashing work. I don't have anybody with me to video me on the boom painting, but that's where we stopped. We're about to head up and finish this side of the house. The front's already done. The view from the top. I'm heading up to paint up there. They also taught me how to use the boom so that they weren't using it. I could use it on other things. So I trimmed tons of trees, pulled vines off the house, removed most of the broken shutters, replaced a rotten windowsill, and installed some additional solar security lighting out in the yard. I even helped AT&T run the internet cable to the house from the pole across the street. The technicians were very jealous. Having a lift was so helpful and so much fun and cost effective that I rented it for another month just for myself to use. It was way safer than being on a ladder. I finally had to give it up when I wasn't able to utilize it because rain made the ground too soft to drive it around without getting it stuck. I also used the lifts to remove the large central air conditioning units from the flat roof. The roofer used it to patch the roof, and I was able to board up the stained glass windows and protect them. I loved the lift. Anyway, once all the guttering was down and the new fascia was up, there was damage to the last row of shingles where the new flashing was installed. So the roofer repaired the shingle damage all around the perimeter of the house and also made a couple of patches where there were some known roof leaks. In a rare stroke of good luck, I was excited to hear from him that in general, the pitched roof was in good shape. It's a very high quality roof, and although there's some problems with the installation in places, like leaving parts of the roof deck uncovered, for the most part, it should last another 10 years or so, delaying the need to re-roof the entire house, which saves me a ton of money. While all this was going on, I had another crew in the basement doing demolition. The entire basement was clad with beadboard and tongue and groove pine lumber, so none of the structural components were visible for inspection. It took quite a while to get everything down since there were pipes, wires, and AC ductwork running everywhere. All the wood was inspected and sorted so it could be reused later. This was nasty, gross work, but really necessary. You shouldn't put any money into a house until you know it's structurally sound, and if you can't see what's going on, you can't know. Getting back to the flat roof, there was an obvious water leak in the house you could see from the ceiling collapse in the space where the addition was joined to the main house. That leak corresponds to a giant hole where one of the air conditioning units was sitting directly on the roof. When the roofers were doing demolition, they found 5 layers of roofing material, and it had been coated with some kind of rubberized paint to try to seal leaks. It was just a hot mess. There were also 2 badly damaged 25-inch vents on the flat roof that served no real purpose because the attic was adequately vented elsewhere. Water was just pouring straight down to the room below. The ceiling had already been replaced once with sheetrock, and that sheetrock was collapsing again from water damage. The flat roof should have been a simple job, but it took way longer than the roofer estimated to get the roof off. I felt bad and ended up offering them more money because I know they underbid. Anyway, no matter how experienced a contractor is or how long I've worked with them, I usually stay on site while the work is being done. Questions and issues always come up. In this case, thank goodness I stayed because I had been wondering where the vent stacks were for the added-on 1920s bathroom. Vent stacks are needed for plumbing to work properly, and we'll do a plumbing physics lecture sometime in the future, but I had been confused because I couldn't find the stack. When the copper flashing was removed from the top of the walls, there was the stack. I saw it just as the roofers were preparing to cover it back up, just like they found it. It had been covered with 5 different layers of roofing. I intervened and we modified the cap flashing to leave the vent stack open. My husband and I also had a near miss with the same cap flashing. Okay, it is really gusty today, and Stuart and I went back to the other house for lunch, and he had been working all day on this side of the house, clearing out debris. When we came home, we're back, we're eating lunch. 2 giant pieces of my roof cap flashing, actually 3, were on the ground where we had been working. The wind caught them and lifted them off the walls and flew them down about 20 yards. So that was lucky that we were gone. That could have been a very serious, if not deadly, accident. So now I'm up on the roof and I have taken down all of the other ones that were still attached. It's always something. We considered ourselves very lucky that we weren't seriously hurt, but my copper flashing was mutilated in the process. Fortunately, they were able to hammer everything out straight-ish and keep the original copper caps. On the flat roof, we also had to install some 4x4s for the new air conditioning equipment to sit on. These 4x4s are in a position that doesn't block water. That wasn't really done previously. The flow of water also determines how the roof must be laid out so water doesn't flow back up under the roofing. Just like shingles on a pitched roof shed water, a flat roof does that too. Technically, the roof isn't flat at all. It has a slope. It's just not a very steep slope, but it's still important to overlap the roofing based on the direction of the slope and the natural way water will flow. I want to pause and show you here the slope of the roof. It's pretty dramatic from left to right. So again, this is a flat roof, but still sloping. The roof is not quite finished. It's watertight, but there's a lot of flashing work and touch-up that needs to be done in conjunction with masonry work. For example, here's temporary flashing and patching around the chimney because the chimney itself needs extensive work done on it. At some point in the future, we'll do that. Here's a nice shot of the copper flashing joining the wall to the pitched roof, which is original flashing to the house, you can see the copper coming down where that red composition roof is. The red composition is designed to mimic that copper originally was the flashing when the roof was slate. And here's the close-up of the cupola. It's made out of galvanized sheet metal. It's in great shape. It needs some scraping and painting, but overall I think the metal portion of the cupola is fine. It had some holes cut in it for AC lines that need to be patched, and you can see the remnants of this thick rubbery paint that they put on everything trying to stop leaks. If you have to resort to this, you need a new roof. It's not a solution to anything. So all that needs to be scraped, and this needs to be reflashed and repaired. This is a nice feature. These are terracotta roof caps. They were functional when the roof was slate so that they could stop water where the slate joined. This one's in pretty good shape. Now they're just put on decoratively. This one's not in such great shape. These are cosmetic issues that'll be addressed way in the future, getting these off and getting them repaired or new ones made. All of these things took place in the first 3 weeks. Letting a roof continue to leak is never an option. With all the heavy rain this summer, the new roof and the patches have been tested, and there are no new leaks that I can find. So to recap, there was no apparent safety issues. Security got handled immediately, and stopping water leaks from the top down took center stage, as well as clearing the basement so that a structural inspection could take place. There's so much work to do in this house, and it's all being documented here on YouTube. We're starting on a couple of really big projects in the next few weeks. So if you love old houses as much as I do and want them to be saved, subscribe and hit the like button, and share the link with any friends you might think would enjoy these videos. And if you have any questions or specific areas of interest that you'd like to see covered, please leave me a comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here as I continue the restoration of the League-Kempner House in Galveston, Texas.